So on Premiere, any place where this arrow goes, you can hover over any of these boxes and press your tilde key, which is, you know, that little squiggly one, and it will enlarge any of these boxes to full screen for you. Now, so that you can get basically a closer look. Now, some of these, obviously, you don't really need to use this in full screen, or this doesn't serve any purpose in full screen, but this one does, this one, and definitely your timeline, because when you enlarge your timeline to full screen, let's say you have a whole bunch of layers of audio down here and a bunch of layers of video and titles up here. Well, you may not be able to see them all in this little screen down here if you have audio going down past the screen and video going up. So that's one of the reasons that it's good to enlarge the whole screen when you're editing at certain points. Now, another thing here that I can show you is right here. If you right click here, it gives you a whole bunch of options for this monitor, and some of these down here are, this is your composite video, but this will give you, this is just different settings that you can look at. Some of these I don't really know what they are yet, so but these are here though, so you may want to research that. But mostly it's composite video of what you want to do. But also on this right click, you can undock the panel, close the frame. But so if you left click on undock the panel, what it does is allows you to move this around. So if you have a second monitor, you can basically take this to your other monitor, and then you can also do this. You can, if you want to enlarge it, this is your secondary option. Just click and drag at the corners, so you got full screen. So back to, let me show you one other option here. Now let's say you start moving all this stuff around, and you realize, oh wow, I want it back to the way it was. If you go up here to Windows, Workspace, it's not showing the right side for whatever reason. Hold on, let me move this over a little bit further here. Okay, Windows, Workspace, you can go down to Reset Current Workspace. Click yes, and then you have everything back to where it was originally mounted at. Now, one quick thing about the source monitor, which is this, and this is your program monitor. Use them both. Learn why they're there and use them both. A lot of people forget all about this source monitor here. Let me pull up a couple videos here for you, and I'll show you. Oh, right here. This is another thing too. Over here in your projects file, this is where I have my video stored, and I have all these different bins, so everything's organized so I can find stuff a little quicker. If you need a new bin, right here, you see this little thing pops up. You click that, and you can make a new bin. You just type in whatever the name of the bin is and click enter. This little arrow right here, if it's down, means it's open. If it's like that, it's closed. So like you click left click here, you can open up the file. Left click, it closes it. So now this one I don't need here right now, so I'm just gonna highlight it and then click delete, and it's gone. But now up here, so this is some of our video from the Canon. So let's say if you right click on the file, it brings up these options right here. Now open in source monitor is an awesome option because it allows you to open up whatever's in this file. Now let's say you just want to open up one or two, you can just kind of highlight the ones that you want. Oops, hold on. Right, I'm sorry. Okay, I accidentally pulled those out of the file. Let me put them back in there. Okay, so let's say you just want to do, if you click on this file right here, you can already preview it up here. And you can kind of scroll through to see what's on there. Or you can press play over here. So then you can say, okay, well that is the file I want. So you can right click on that file, go down to, where is it? Open in source monitor right here. Is that showing up on your screen? Boom. It's here now. Now, the whole point of the source monitor is this is the source video that you're pulling clips out of to go into your timeline, and then your program monitor, this is what's on the timeline, your final cut of the film or whatever you're working on. But the nice thing about the source monitor is when up here it allows you to create shorter cuts. You don't have to pull the whole clip into the timeline and start chopping it up down there, because it's a pain when you're trying to put the movie together and your timeline's getting cluttered. So rather than cutting in the timeline, although you can do that too, but this makes more sense. Right here, this little button right here is a set marker. These allow you to make marker points in the video of stuff that you know you're going to want to keep. Now these buttons right here take you to your previous and your next markers, so you can see where I've done the different marker points. And the reason why these two marker points here are highlighted a different color is because, by the way, this button right here goes to your in point, this goes to your out point. So the highlighted part here is what video you have selected. If you're going to pull it out of the clip up here, you pull it down, just pull it right here. This is just this section right here. This, whatever 18 seconds of film this is right here, I just pulled down into the timeline. Now, let's say I didn't want this clip and I decided, oh, I only wanted from here to here. Well, I want to mark an in point right here. So that's what these are. Mark in, mark out. So you mark in. Now you see how it extended the length of it? But I want it to be here, so I can just click next marker, and then I click my out point. So now when I pull this file down in here, it's this section rather than that other section from earlier. So now, as you notice down here too in the timeline, there's on the top up here, there's some red and there's some green, and this is means that your workspace, your timeline, has not been rendered. Meaning this red stuff probably won't play at unless your computer is really fast. It probably won't play at regular speed because it hasn't been rendered in the timeline yet. So if you press play, because we only got one layer here, it's not too choppy. It's actually pretty clean.
Scene 3, take 2.
But let's say you do have a lot of layers and it's playing choppy and you can't get it to play back at regular speed. This red part right here, this is a wonderful thing. You just click in the box here so that you select it on this timeline. It doesn't have to click on any of the video, just click in the box itself and go up to sequence. Oops, and then render entire work area right here. Oh, it's not showing up on there. Hold on, let me I wish that monitor. Okay, so go up to sequence. Oops, sorry. Go down to render entire work area. And what it'll do is it tells you how many frames it's going to render, and this red will turn blue, green, so that it will play at regular speed without it being choppy. So normally what it does, it'll start playing as soon as it rendered it, but look how the red here is gone now. At the top of that timeline, everything is green, so that you know that in this workspace right here, it doesn't render it into a separate file, it just renders it in the workspace. So it's not like mixing it down really, it's more like just making sure it plays at regular speed. So okay, so one other quick thing here. Okay, so back over here we can close this file up. Like I said, I have a different bin for everything, behind the scenes, the Canon, everything has a separate bin. These are just the photographs that we have. The sequences, now that's another thing real quick I want to talk to you about, is this is so helpful if you're editing a movie with multiple parts, and it gets confusing after a while if you have one timeline and it's all your whole hour-and-a-half movie, and you want to change one clip early on. Well, then you have to move everything behind that clip forward, and there are shortcuts for doing that, but sometimes it can mess up your entire flow because it moved forward the video, but some of the audio didn't go with it. So rather than dealing with that, I edit in multiple sequences, and the reason for that is you can see right here I have Casa Skit 1. That's the first one with you know, this stuff going on. Casa Skit 2 is the second piece, and then the Casa Message one is this one. And the reason why I did that is later I'll put them all together when I'm sure that each section is right, and that way if I have sound effects like when the cops come in knocking on the door, that's going to be a separate layer of audio down here. So I'll make sure it's just layered properly. It's just easier to do it that way. So to create a new sequence, you go up to File. Oh, hold on, let me move this over again. Okay, so go up to File, and right here, new, has a project sequence. You got black video, bars and tone. So I mean, you got all these things in here that, because a lot of times if you're going to submit to a film festival, they're going to want bars and tone at the beginning of your video. So it's already in here in the program for you. So that, but under file, new, that's right there. But it also is the setting for sequence, which is, oops, sorry. Okay, so file, new, sequence, and that will pop up this box right here. And what this does is has all these different settings in here. This is the 1080p, this is the 1080i, which I don't think we're doing that, but so you got your 30 frames, your 24 frames, and your 25 and 24. I think we're shooting at 30 on all this. So this is where allows you to make a new sequence that'll be empty for you to start clicking and dragging video and sound clips into. Obviously you got your 720 here, but there's a bunch of them and a bunch of different settings in here. You know, standard, widescreen, digital SLR. You know, it just depends on what kind of camera that you're using as well for these settings. You know, pretty much on this Canon setting, you may not have this in your program. This might be an add-on later, but that's what I've been using. So right down here you got your sequence name, so you can name it whatever you want. You know, like it can be called sequence, or you know, or just edit. I always number everything when I do that, because that way later, if I have more than one video going on that has the same name, I have, you know, video 1, video 2, video 3, and that way, you know, because like you can see in Casa 1, Casa Skit 1, Casa Skit 2. So anyway, this is a new sequence now. As you can see, it's empty, so you can click and drag video into here from above. Obviously you got your, this button right here, this is important too. This is your, what it does is it enlarges or shrinks your timeline. Now you can click and drag it like this, or take it down. To the left is as small as it will go. I usually go about mid-range, but you know, on a short clip like this, you want to, you know, it's not very long, you want to make sure that you, oh, hold on, you know what, that's really short actually, it's 1 frame. Okay, so up here, this is another option for you in the program monitor. For whatever reason, this is only 1 frame of video, this bars and tone. So this little button right here allows me to click and drag it over, and I can extend the length of it. So let's say I want that to be the video. These arrows too are important right here, because you can go 1 frame at a time to the left or to the right. So let's say the video, you're submitted a film to a contest, and they said they need 5 seconds of bars and tone at the beginning of your video. So here I'm at the 5-second mark, which you can see right here. Now that shows what length this is at. Over here shows you how long the video is, and it's 1 frame because I haven't told it to be longer than that. So I'll click my mark out right here. So now my frame, it's 1501, so I'll go back 1 frame there and click that. So there you go. So you click this down here, drop it in, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, where's my audio? Why is it way down there? This is preset at, you see all these, where it says audio 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Now down here, these have 1 speaker here next to the number. Down here it looks like there's 2 speakers. That means this is stereo and these are mono. Now if you want to get rid of all this extra space, you're like, well, I don't need those right now, I'd rather have my audio up next to the video. You can right click over the audio, see where it says delete tracks, click on that, and then you get this box. Now don't just click OK, you need to tell it what, you know, what tracks. If I click OK, it's not going to do anything. I have to tell it to delete audio tracks. I'm going to say all empty tracks, but it also tells you you can delete any of these. But I'm going to say all empty ones at this point, just to make matters easy. Now watch what it does to the audio. Boom, drops it right below. So it's easier to edit it now because you can see it. Now if you want to see the actual wave file, this little arrow right here is your collapse or expand. And you can enlarge here. You can see your video up closer. Now let's say, well, you're like, I want to see the actual audio file. Right here, if you go down over any of these, it allows you to click and drag these things around. But what this one does right here is allows you to make it bigger. So now you can look at your audio clip at a much larger size. Obviously this stays the same because it's just bars. But now if you go over your audio here and right click, it brings up a whole bunch of more options. And one of my favorite ones is audio gain, which is really good. Speed and duration is good depending on if it's voices or not. You know, you don't want to speed it up unless you want a chipmunk sound, but that's a nice nice option right there. But this audio gain right here pops this up, and you can type in a number here, or you can like left click here and it'll unselect it, and then you can click and drag to the right, or if it's too loud you can click and drag and go into the negative numbers to the left. And so this will change the level of the audio. So if you left click on it again, it'll highlight it for you, and you just press your number and enter, so it's back at 0. But so you can see there's our bars and tone right there. So 5 seconds of that. Alright, so I'm going to get rid of those real quick. So okay, so on audio here, I want to show you a couple quick things on your video. If you look at the Casa video here, you can definitely see the wave file. The really loud one at the end is the whole crowd. It somewhat peaked out the signal. The other video, the other audio was, you know, this first section is pretty good, but the second section was a little loud. So if you notice on here, I have lowered the audio here a little bit in this section, and over here completely out. The reason for this is this little wave file right there, that's Berta saying action. So, and I wanted to have the shot for a couple seconds before so we could fade into it. So what I did here is I actually dropped her audio down, and the way you do this, these are little dots here are called what are they called, keyframes, or what they're called. And what this allows you to do is, if your audio is not selected, this won't work. You have to actually click on it and then see it, it's a little white dot in the middle here. This allows you to add a keyframe. So let's say I wanted the audio here. Here, let me go ahead and I'll delete that keyframe right there. So, like, oops, I messed it up, didn't I? So, no, I want to put that keyframe back. So once you do that, anything between these two keyframes is draggable up and down. And you can go from either end or from the middle, but watch this little magic right here. So if I click on the keyframe itself, though, because see, this raises all of it. But if I click on the keyframe itself, it only raises that section. You know, obviously there's a little bit of play. So if you want to, you know, you can tweak the heck out of this by just going in and adding all these keyframes in every section. You know, if you need a different level, like let's say right here, let's say this note right here had peaked out the signal, and over here you'll see it go up into red. This is a little shortcut I do too, is I'll click a keyframe right over the loud part, and then right next to it, only a couple frames away, I will add keyframes as well. So if this little line right here was too loud, I could just go in like this and just drop it down a couple decibels or half a decibel or so. Now you think, oh, that's going to be noticeable in the audio, but it's not. Because that was louder than the rest anyway. You're just bringing it down to the level where the rest of it's at. And see right there, we're peeking out somewhere. See right there, it peaked out. That's because this section is still too loud where the people are at. So I can click on the whole thing, drag it all down a little bit. Now the reason why I have a keyframe here and here is if you don't have it gradually go up or down, you'll notice that the signal all of a sudden gets louder or softer. So you have to do this is somewhat of a fade from here. And what I liked about this was, you know, is you can click and drag on that keyframe, and I'm going to click and drag. Right here is a little bit of dead space, so that's where I'm going to have the fade go, fade down to a lower volume in this dead space, not on the so if you try to fade during dialogue, sometimes it's noticeable. If you have to, but like I said, like if you need just a couple frames like this to lower the volume a little bit, that's not noticeable. But if you do this, that's going to be, listen to that difference.
Please volunteer and be a cop.
See, volunteer right on the word. So if it's more subtle, just so you don't peak out the signal.
Pasta.
You can make a difference. Be a pasta.
And see, we didn't peak out there. We didn't go up. But now I've heard different stories about where the audio signal should be for broadcast quality. You notice how you have -30, -18, -12, -6. I've been told somewhere about 6 to -3 is what is considered broadcast quality. So right now this is a little bit hot.
You can make a difference. Be a pasta.
It's going almost peaking out, so this still has to come down just another half a decibel or so.
You can make a difference. Be a pasta.
Yeah, see how it's kind of hovering between the 6 and the 0? That's about where you want it for television and stuff.
Thank you for watching.
See, and here I got it about the same.
Please volunteer and be a pasta.
You can make a difference. Be a
So let's say all that work I just did and I decided, wow, I messed it up, I need to undo all that. Well, you can click undo a million times, or you can go to your history button, which is another nice option. Over in this section right here, where is it? Right here is history. So you have effects, info, media browser, and history. So right here is your history button. So this is everything you've done in the edit since the time that it was new and opened. So if I don't like any of that stuff that I just did, I can go back to when I started working on it and undo it. So like here I was adding all these keyframes and moving them. And then I remove the keyframe there. Okay, so about here is where I was when I started changing stuff. So that's a nice option, is that you can go back without having to undo a million times. That'll save you some time there. Another option here, when you go up to File, oops, hold on, let me move that over again. Okay, File. Now under Save As, there's a variety of things that you can do. Now you know about exporting on this program already, and all the settings for that. Okay, so I don't think you need to worry about that then too much, but under Save As, okay, actually that's just where you save it at, so you know about that as well. So I don't think you need to worry about anything under here. The one thing nice about this export button though is that there is have you played with the settings down in here a lot on the different videos? Like if you're going to mix it down to, let's say, a QuickTime file, there's these video codec settings here that give you options for changing the way it's mixed down. You know, video, different types of videos, you know, MPEG, H.264. You got your regular stuff up here that we normally do, but so that's one option there. So if you have to compress the footage a little bit more, so it still looks nice, but it's not quite as big of a file as like an uncompressed AVI. Like if you do it, you know, an uncompressed Microsoft AVI, this is going to be, and it tells you right here too, 1920 by 1080. So that's a pretty big file. So even on this though, you can crunch down. Like right here, it's already telling you it's going to crunch it down and mix it to 720 by 480, and that's uncompressed. So, but that's for, like I said, uncompressed Microsoft AVI. But so anyway, you got all these settings here that and once you do select these, there's these every different option down here that you can think of as far as size and compression and, you know, whatever. And obviously you want to make sure when you do export these, both those buttons are selected too. But okay, what else can I show you off the top of my head that I'm thinking of right now. Okay, so edit out of your, pull stuff out of the program monitor, or out of the source monitor, I mean, and then you can see what you're editing here. Okay, up here under your audio mixer, this is a nice thing to know as well, and it's also under this section, is you have control. Like you can tell right here, I have this is a music layer, the second one, so that's right here, the music, I believe. Where's that? So you can click and drag here, obviously, to raise and lower audio if you have an issue all in all that you need to raise or lower it. But up here in these boxes, this is important for keeping track of it, is to name what everything is. Dialogue 1, you know, music 1, and always put 1 because you may have more than one layer of these things later to keep track of. And this could be Foley 1. But like I said, always give it a 1, because you, especially when Foley comes into the fix, because you know, background noises and stuff. Foley, you may have 10 layers of Foley noises at one point. So you keep adding audio tracks, and it'll keep expanding and going to the side here. And eventually, you won't even see all of them because you'll have so many that you'll have to scroll over down here to see everything. But you can also enlarge this with the tilde key. Okay, now this is your effects control box up here as well, where your source monitor is at. And this allows you, the motion run right here is size of the video. Like on this one right here, the original size of the video was a little bit smaller than this, so I zoomed in a bit because there was a weird line on the wall and it just looked uncomfortable to me. So right here is scale, so you can change that to anything that you want, back to 100% where it starts at, and I was doing it at 106. But and then this is your position button, so you can move these, you know, if you need to move the videos anywhere that you want to. But there's also a shortcut, is if you have it selected, you can always click on the video here, and you can move it around that way as well. So you can position it anywhere in there. So let's say that you wanted to make this a close-up of the two kids in the front, but oh, her head's getting a little cut off. What do we do? Well, you just reposition it and unselect it, and it'll show you what you got. So this is, you know, just 200%. Now this button here says fit, but this has other options too for editing. Let's say you want to edit something really close up, so you can look at it 400% in, 200%, 150. So let's say you're just editing something in here and you needed to look at the video closer without actually changing the size of the video. So this shows you different ways right here. Here's 10% of this. This is the monitor size, not the video size. So if you want it to fit the monitor, you just click fit. Same thing goes over here as well. You know, you can do the same sizes if you need to look at it for a different reason, but I usually go to fit. So okay, so let's go back to effects control up here. So you don't see anything under effects control because you don't have a clip selected, so we click here. So we got position, and this button right here is nice. Let's say everything you just did you hated and you're like, I didn't like that. So you can either go back down to your history button and remember which settings you want to go back on, or you can go to reset, and it will reset the shot back to its original shape and size, which I really love. So under there you have position, scale, you got, obviously you can rotate the stuff too if you need to. That's under motion. So, and the same thing goes here as it does for down here, this keyframe here. You can add keyframes here. Like let's say in the beginning of the video you want the video to be here, the position of it or the rotation of it. So you can, this toggle animation right here, you click that and it adds a keyframe there. And you click up here and now you can add, let's say the rotation, you want the rotation to change a little bit, so you rotate it just say 4. Now it adds a keyframe there now because you have this stopwatch on. So every time you move to a different point in the video and you change the position, it'll add a keyframe to it. So essentially what this is doing is it's kind of animating your video, you know, a few frames at a time. So now if you go back to the beginning.
Thank you for watching. The kids need you.
Well, if it was rendered, you'd see it slowly turning because we added those keyframes to the rotation. But once again, we don't like what we did, so we reset. So that's under motion. There's a lot of options there. I don't know much about this anti-flicker stuff. It has something to do when the video's looking funny, or if you're videotaping a screen, maybe you can take some of the anti-flicker there. So once again, you know, you can minimize this or open it. So I didn't like what I did there, so I'm going to turn that off, and this will say, if you turn that off, it'll say the action will delete the existing keyframe. So yes. So I'm going to minimize this. Now you have your opacity. So let's say you wanted to layer 2 shots and you wanted to see one over the other, you can change this opacity to 50%. And if there's a second video over this, like this, and well, let's say, okay, let me go back to this one, back to 100% on this one. But the video on top is the one that you have to change the opacity on to see through it. So see, now you can see 50%, so you see this shot underneath and then the shot above. This is helpful if you want to have a ghost in the shot or something like that, you know. So you can, as long as the camera frame doesn't change, you can have a ghost walk right through this. So okay, once again, you can reset it if you need to. Okay, so let's continue down here. So that's opacity. Time remapping, I haven't really played with this much. You may want to look this up on the internet. I'm not 100% sure what that is. Now this color corrector and RGB curves, these are layers I added. Let me take them off real quick. So you can kind of see, you know, what the shot looks like originally, and I've been playing around with some of the color correcting, just, you know, darken down the darks a little bit, and, you know, trying to, it's not perfect yet, it still needs to be tweaked, but if you don't like it, you can reset it. Now where I got these two effects from, the fast color corrector and the RGB curves, is right here, your effects settings. And this is awesome because you got audio effects, audio transitions, video effects, and video transitions, and there's a million of them in here. Now let's say, if you notice here at the end of the video, here there's this little thing right here, it says constant gain. That's a little confusing because it says constant gain, but it does the opposite. It only is a constant gain if it's at the beginning of the clip. If it's at the end of the clip, it kind of fades out audio wise. So it does the opposite at the end. But that's right here under audio transition. You can go under here and you got constant gain, constant power, and exponential fade. I haven't played with these two bottom ones much because this one does mostly what I need. What's nice about this is when you drag it on there, let me remove it real quick, it does it automatically for I don't remember how many seconds that is that it fades it out, but let's say you want your audio to fade sooner, you can actually left click here, but make sure you click on the, if you do this, you have to click on the effect, but so you can click and it tells you how many frames right there, how many frames you're dragging that audio effect over, so oh, I want to go a whole another second. So at this point on, the audio will start to fade out slowly. And you can also achieve that effect by the keyframe thing as well. If you want to click on the audio, click on your keyframe here, and then go to almost your last frame and click on another keyframe here, and then on here click on the actual keyframe, left click on it, and pull it down till it says 0, 00 decibel. And then what that has essentially done is killed the audio at the end, but it's allowing all this audio to fade down slowly. Now sometimes I will combo that effect with the constant gain. A lot of times I'll do that because you'll have something like right at the end of the audio clip, action, cut, one of those words, and you drop that constant gain on there and it fades out, but it doesn't fade out 100% before the clip ends, so you might hear that last word. So this is when this comes in handy. And if you want this to fade to 0 before, you just left click on the frame and you can drag it anywhere you want, up or down, but you can make it fade quicker. Let's say the word that you want to cut out is here, so you just make sure you click this to the left of the audio, and by the time the audio gets to here, it will be completely faded to 0. But with this constant gain effect on there as well, it'll help mask the fact that this audio may go down quicker. Could be unnatural sounding if you just do it by itself. So that's under your audio transitions. It's almost always good to have an audio transition at the beginning of a clip. You don't want to do them between audios too much, because if people are talking to each other in the scene and you put the fades between, it might actually layers the audio clips, and you'll hear part of one and part of another. It just makes it really weird. Let me give you an example real quick here. Okay, so right here, let's say you can see the audio clips for the dialogue here. So this is separate clips. Oh, and here's another option while we're sitting here too. If you click on it, you notice how it selects the audio and the video all at the same time. And let's say you wanted Tavia's clip here to overlap some of his dialogue, but you can't click and drag it over. Well, you could, but but now you're gonna cut off his dialogue. So here's a nice option. If you right click over the video or the audio, it brings up a whole bunch more options here. And the unlink button is the one you want. So you unlink it. Now it will select either piece.